What WWE moves are the most painful to perform? Let's watch.
By Factor. Hey guys, Maven here. Now, we all know wrestling is an art form between two competitors meant to have moves that look devastatingly painful. But in actuality, sometimes the move hurts the person performing the move more than the person taking the move.
I always
Which ones
said
are
that.
those? Well, stick around and I'm gonna...
When I do my reactions, sometimes when I do my reactions on Patreon and I watch like the shows or whatever, they'll do like a move and I'll be like, who got hurt more? Like a wrestler will do a move to their opponent and it'll look like it hurt the person that who did the move. Look like they're the one who got the most of the effects of it. And it'd be just like so confusing because I'd be like, okay, who got hurt more? So I've noticed that too a lot.
I'll tell you a few of my most painful moves I hated performing. To start the list, I'm gonna mention a move I did in almost every match of my career. Never 100% knew exactly how I was gonna land. Sometimes the person I was throwing it against would take the bump smooth and I wouldn't even feel them. Other times they would stop my momentum in midair and I would land on my side. Wasn't one of those moves that I necessarily didn't look forward to taking, but it was definitely a move that I felt in the shower, in the car ride, in the hotel the next day when I woke up and my back was hurting, and I still feel it 20 some years later. Next on the list is pretty much any move where you're going from inside the ring to outside the ring. So it could be a plancha, a suicide dive, or a crossbody from the top rope. Anytime you're going from inside the ring to outside the ring, your opponent has one and only one job, and that is to catch you. And trust me, there are way better things on your to-do list than catching a grown man diving through midair at you. I promise you that. But this was a move that you just had to suck it up, tell yourself, I'm gonna be safe. Prepare yourself in case the worst happened and they didn't catch you, which occasionally they don't. You had to just be ready for the worst and hope that they were gonna be there for you. For the majority of my career, most every time I went from the ring to the floor, my opponent was there to receive me. But occasionally, that's not always the truth. And then remember, we cannot fake gravity. So when you're in the air, flying, coming down, sometimes you come down wrong on a knee, sometimes you come down wrong on an elbow. I've even came down wrong on a shoulder, and it's definitely not the place you want to be. It's painful as all get out. I remember working Mark Henry once, and I was coming from the rope to Mark on the floor, and he was there for me. He caught me perfect, but you know, like I said, Murphy's Law, what can will go wrong. As I come down and he catches me, I land kind of corkscrew on my knee, and I can still feel that pain coursing through my knee. And the only thing I could do was try to spin out of it. Well, that would later lead to knee problems. That probably originated that night. Anytime you're going from an elevated position to the floor, leaving that ring to go to the outside, be ready. Because there's a good chance it's gonna hurt you more than it hurts your opponent. Now, I gotta be honest with everyone. Reminiscing about these moves is making me feel pain. Fully hungry. And fortunately for us, this week's sponsor, Factor, has us covered. Are you hungry? But I'm such a fan. 150. That's code MAVEN. And a big thank you to Fact5.com. And now, back to the pain. The next move on my list was gonna become my new finishing move before my departure from the WWE. It would become known as the backstabber. For me, it was called the M-plosion, and it was a move that I was ecstatic about. I was excited to finally have a good finishing maneuver, something that looked devastating, something that looked like it inflicted so much pain. But no, it put way more pain on me than it did the recipient. The idea of the move is behind the guy you jump, grab around his chin, put both of your knees onto his back and take a full back bump. As you're taking your bump down, his body weight, and this is where the pain came in, is landing completely on my knees and on my back. And thus, this meant that when I was taking my normal bump and the normal force that I would take
You're basically
from a
pulling
bump,
a weight
I was
onto you.
adding another grown man's weight on top of it, sandwiching me down
That's crazy.
onto the mat. Not to mention, this killed my knees every time I would land and every time my opponent's back would come down. It would compress both my knees into a unnatural position. I don't know what my overall health would have been had I had this finishing maneuver for 5-10 years. But I do know that the 2 weeks I did have it, it was one move I did not look forward to giving any. And it's unusual to be getting new and sometimes finishing moves a few years into your career. I got this move thanks to Fit Finley. He was working with me one of the times I was out in the ring, and he thought it would be a great maneuver, and he knew that me using the missile drop kick just wasn't a devastating enough finishing move. So Fit taught me how to use the move, and I would utilize this move for only 2 weeks until my release. And following my release, this would become Carlito's finishing maneuver for years to come. So,
I wonder how he feels
Carlito,
about it.
you're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. The move I would utilize for a finishing maneuver prior to the implosion
I didn't know that was his move, though.
known as the Halo DDT. And again, we're talking about gravity. Gravity is not your friend when it comes to wrestling, but gravity is the one ally you're always gonna have in every wrestling match. The Halo DDT was just another move that I was going to be coming off of an elevated position, and I was going to be utilizing gravity to take me down to that canvas. And what hurt about the maneuver more for me than my opponent was, all my opponent had to do was catch me out of the corner of his eye and then take a simple face bump. Whereas I, coming off the second rope, had to twist and maneuver my body and land in an uncompromising, awkward position every time. And the pain would come because I would land different depending on who I was giving the move to. Some people would take a crisp, flat face bump, making it easy, while others, the timing would perhaps be a little off, and that's my fault because it wasn't a maneuver highly used, so it was just a tough move to get the timing right on. But depending on who I was giving it to meant sometimes I might be landing on my side, on my hip, driving my hip into the mat, while others I might be landing on an elbow or on a shoulder. And when something isn't routine, that just opens up the floodgates for injuries to happen. The Halo DDT was probably nothing any of my opponents ever thought about or thought, wow, I'm not looking forward to taking this, because it was an easy bump. But every time I did it, in the back of my mind, I kind of wondered, I wonder how I'm gonna land this time, because I knew at any moment injury was right around the corner. Now, the next...
It's so scary that it's kind of like dependent on the other person, the opponent. Because I pointed out too before, like I feel like some of the moves that are being executed, you could tell like the chemistry between the two is so good, and then there's moments like he just said, depending on the person, how they receive it can like matter as well. So like that is so scary because you're like putting your trust into someone else. Like to fall off of the top rope and hopefully they're there to catch you, or hopefully they catch you right. Oh, that's so scary.
Move on my list sucks so bad I only did it one time my entire career.
It's a lot of
and it
stress.
would come in one of my first matches that I ever had. It was the moonsault. You've seen 1,000 moonsaults.
I love moonsaults.
I'm gonna give you a second to think about it. Think to yourself, of all the moonsaults you've seen in wrestling, how many of them actually connect? Did you think about it? Not that many. Why is that? Well, when you're doing a backflip into the ring, it's hard. It's extremely hard to land safely on somebody in that position. So a majority of wrestlers are gonna have a moonsault into their arsenal, but they're gonna have a moonsault that they miss into their arsenal. That would be me early in my career. And I went into it with full belief moonsault was going to be just one of my moves I could check off, until that first moonsault I threw on SmackDown against Taz. And Taz, once again,
knocked the wind out his chest
perfectly. But when I came down and landed, I landed in a way that actually knocked all the wind out of me at the time. It was a little scary because it's a move that you could under rotate. If you over rotate, yeah, you hurt your toes. But if you under rotate, you're landing on your head, and that's not good for anybody. So it was one of the moves that the moment it hurt me in one of my early matches, I said, this isn't something that I'm gonna have to worry about going into a match. Because going into that match with Taz, I was worried. I was worried about the moonsault the entire day. And my worries were justified when it became the most difficult move of the night that night. And it was easy for Taz. Did he feel anything? No, he rolled. I'm the one that took the brunt of that pain. And that's why it makes this list. Now, what was the most painful move I had to take night after night in my career? Well, for me, it was by far the missile. Imagine climbing up to the top of a wrestling ring, and then imagine diving off that wrestling ring and coming down directly on one knee. Well, that's what I was doing night in and night out. And that is why in 2005, I had to get my knee scoped because there was so much damage done, but no structural damage, so it had to be cleaned out. And it was due to the missile drop kick 4 to 5 times per week. And speaking of pain, one of the ways to earn your keep in the WWE is by receipts. To learn about my least to most pain.
Wow, a lot of his bumps are like his knees. So I know his knees have to be on fire, probably like right now. I wonder if that was just like an uncontrollable thing, like his body just naturally reacted that way. Well, except for that one where I think he said Mark Henry had to catch him and he ended up kind of like corkscrewing into his knee. I don't know. That's crazy how his knees always get fucked up. Or it always gets majority of like, you know, the pain. But yeah, this was good. I love this. I wonder like how other wrestlers feel about certain moves. Maybe it depends on the person performing the move. You know what I'm saying? Maybe for him, he got injured a lot doing a certain type of move, and maybe somebody else, it didn't bother them. I don't know. That's really interesting. But that is gonna do it for today's reaction, you guys. Make sure you leave some likes and comments down below. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one. Toodles.